this month. The story of the games and possibly the year. An inspiring and moving account of one team's journey to gold.
The first thing that happened with cancer was that I didn't believe that would happen to me.
Big isn't always best. Why the future for Grand Prix racing could be 40 foot long. Plus, we take a look at the sailing Paralympics in Rio. But first, party trick or race winner. Why one specific manoeuvre is the new holy grail for the America's Cup. One more World Series event and 3 months to go until the teams can launch their race boats for 2017. The road to the America's Cup has reached a critical phase. Winning the World Series overall hands a 2-point advantage at the start of the AC qualifiers, the match racing series that kicks off next May. Little surprise then that the World Series event in Toulon was treated so seriously. Double Olympic medalist Nathan Outteridge was back at the helm aboard Artemis Racing. After a difficult season, the Swedish team delivered an impressive performance, winning the Toulon regatta. Dean Barker's SoftBank Team Japan also put on a consistent performance and finished second. Sir Ben Ainsley's Land Rover BAR sneaked onto the podium in third after a slow start to the weekend. And it was this result that could have the greatest significance as the British team extended their overall lead over Oracle Team USA to a 14-point margin. But while teams were trying to excel in Toulon, the boats that they are developing for next year's racing are radically different. Significantly more powerful and way more sophisticated, the Cup boats for 2017 have as much in common with the current AC45s as a Mini Cooper does with a Lamborghini. Excelling at both is like striving to be bilingual. And it's not just boat development that's important. Teams are having to learn new sailing techniques too. Among the most important is the foiling tack. Staying on the foils when changing direction while sailing into the wind was once seen as impossible. But today, the ability to perform a foiling tack is not just desirable, but essential.
Whoever doesn't do a foiling tack is probably going to lose the race. The boat that can make it around the race course without touching the water will win this America's Cup.
And the first team to declare that they had succeeded was SoftBank Team Japan. Skipper Dean Barker is no stranger to pioneering new techniques. As the skipper for Emirates Team New Zealand in the last Cup, the Kiwis had been the first to fly their 72-foot Cup boat, and Barker had been at the helm.
During the last America's Cup, the Holy Grail was full jibing, and very early on we got our AC72 foiling.
And we're on our way, ripping downwind, both boats up on the foils. What an amazing start to this first race.
Yeah, we've kind of always thought, I always thought that when we started this America's Cup, people would be tacking on the foils by the time we get to racing. So it's something that we kind of always had an open mind on. And
we're out there, with a nice breeze, and we put the boat into attack, and there we were, stayed up on the foils. I think the giveaway was when Chris sort of let out a bit of a little giggle actually on the as we exited the tack.
Yeah, I mean, the first few times when it was nearly on, I was kind of almost swearing like, oh, this is so on. But then when we actually did one, I just was giggling away. Yeah, it was cool. It was a great feeling.
Thought, yep, there we go. That's the first one ticked off, and then we pulled off another one the same day. And I think it was just satisfying to think that all the work that we've been doing in terms of trying to understand the key components and sort of all paid off, and there we were, pulling one off.
If it's anything like moth sailing, it starts to open up the race course a lot more. Your options are a lot wider. It's not about sailing boundary to boundary. You can tack on the shifts a lot more on demand.
It's a real game changer. So that, the race is on. I think most of the teams are aware of it. The game is on really to see who can actually consistently pull it off.
2 days later, and Oracle Team USA had achieved the same.
We had some catastrophic fails in our attempts and some big crashes in attempting to do it, but we eventually did it.
What we were talking about a long time ago was for a boat to not touch the water throughout a whole race, and it's becoming a reality now. Last America's Cup, it was all about the foiling jibe and who could perform the foiling jibe, staying on the foils all the way down the downwind run. This time it's about foil tacking. The gains in a foiling tack, it can be anywhere from 50 metres to 200 metres.
So what might be seen as a party trick today will be a race winner next year. John Bertrand, who skippered Australia's winning team at the 1983 America's Cup, has won the Etchells 22 World Championship for a second time. With his crew, Paul Blowers and Ben Lamb, the Australian flag team dominated the racing in the 58 boat fleet.
To hook up with Ben here and Paul, and for the team to come together, and it just got stronger and stronger. It was just, for me, it's a thrill to be able to be involved in a team that actually clicks, and obviously the boat was good.
The annual gathering in Sardinia at the Max Yacht Rolex World Cup saw a record entry of 52 of some of the world's largest and most advanced yachts. Among those taking the silverware were Hapforth's Bellamente in the competitive Maxi 72 class. In the Super Maxi class, it was Javier Jourdain's Win-Win that took overall victory. Alinghi scored their second act win of the 2016 Extreme Sailing Series in St. Petersburg, Russia. Led by 27-year-old Swiss sailor Arno Sarafagis, the team beat season frontrunners Oman Air in the final match of the 24-race event. Just 5 points now separate Oman Air from Alinghi in the overall standings, with Red Bull sailing team just 1 point further behind. Until this summer, Santiago Lange was one of Argentina's most famous sailors. But since Rio, he and his crew, Cecilia Carranza-Saroli, have gained worldwide notoriety. At the Olympic Games, they challenged the odds, displacing the favourites in the NACRA 17 class to take gold in a nail-biting medal race. Sailing a demanding, high-performance boat that has a reputation for breaking crew, it had seemed clear that NACRA sailors needed to be young and fit to compete. At 54 years old, Lange, or Santi as he's known, bucked the trend and became the oldest medal-winning helmsman of the 2016 Games. But a year earlier, he dodged a bullet. A cancer diagnosis had led to part of a lung being removed. Yet rather than cancel his Olympic plans, his illness strengthened his resolve. A 5-time Olympian with 2 bronze medals, the lure of the Games was irresistible. 1 year later, with gold medals in the bag, the emotion of their journey was released.
Well, first of all, I will name these games the biggest emotions I ever had in sports. And then how it compares, I remember in Athens with Carlos, we missed the gold, and I always, never in all my analysis, understood why we lost it, and so it was one of those. And this time it came, and it's marvelous. It's really, I always dreamed to have my anthem and my flag there, singing and in the top of the highest post, and today it happened, so it's really incredible. For me, the age is just a number. For me, I believe in what you feel in your heart and in your dreams, and how you wake up in the morning willing to do whatever you are trying to achieve. And I don't realize how old I am. I just love sailing, and I wake up every morning trying to be, this time for the last 3 years, been fighting to try to win this gold medal, so I don't care how old I am.
And neither did his crew, Carranza-Saroli. A former double Olympian herself in the single-handed laser radial, there were other challenges to deal with.
What was new for me is to make a team, to sail with another person. It doesn't matter if it was a girl or a boy. I had to learn how to sail with another person. It was hard for me, it's still hard for me. Santi is always saying to me that I have old habits of single-handed. But of course it was an amazing opportunity because of with whom I am sailing with.
The first thing that happened with cancer was that I didn't believe that could happen to me. I always been a sportman and I didn't drink a lot, I never smoked. I had a healthy life, and that was the hardest thing for me to swallow, to accept that I had that illness and I had to do something about it. Only that we lose a year of sailing, but in my private life it didn't affect me because it was just a challenge, and it's incredible, but I see that year as a good year.
2 of his 4 sons are sailors and were competing in the Games in the 49er class. And while their support at the Games was clear, his entire family played a big part in his achievement.
I did all my recuperation after the surgery with my other 2 sons that were living in Barcelona, and since after the day 5 after the operation I started walking with them, and then day 10 I started cycling with them, and from day 10 to day 30 we cycled 500 kilometers together, or 450, and that I felt that was such a good experience to share that with Theo and Borja, that were not the sailors, you know, and we talk a lot and put us together, and I see that as well as there's always another side of the coin. Then when we started, so after a month we started sailing with Ceci in Buenos Aires, and it was bloody tough. I remember here trying to go jiving to the bridge and I couldn't do it. That was November, it was not long ago. And there I realized that sometimes I thought our sport was not physically, but to be good in your brain, you need to be really fit. And all the regattas we did this year, I was more nervous than ever. I fight with other competitors, I fight with the coaches crossing my bow. I was an angry old man, and was that because I was not physically prepared. So I pushed really hard these months, and now I think I sail a very cold, and as I normally sail in the Games.
Olympic history is infused with comebacks. But when victory coincides with a return from a darker, more personal place, the result is all the more poignant. In the sailing world, the Santi story was the biggest of the 2016 Games, and possibly the year. Coming up after the break, a new breed of Grand Prix machines has hit the racing scene. In part 2, we take a look at the latest high-octane, high-performance new 40-foot class. But first, the racing rules are clear. A boat on port tack gives way to one on starboard, but sometimes this simple rule doesn't always play out. Join us after the break to find out what happened next. The TP52 circuit is famous for its advanced boats crewed by some of the world's top professional crews. Collectively, from Olympics to around-the-world marathons, there's little they haven't done, including the odd port and starboard accident. But if you're going to put a hole in someone's boat, it's better to avoid hitting the King of Spain's boat, Bribon, especially if you're in the wrong. Big has been better for years. The 50-foot TP52s have led the way in high-performance development. But today, a new class that is 10 foot shorter is threatening to steal the limelight. In just over a year, 14 fast 40s have arrived on the UK racing scene. With price tags of around £500,000 for a new boat, the rapid growth of the fleet shows plenty of serious intent on the part of the owners. Part of the appeal has been racing for some of the most prestigious silverware, including the 1-ton cup. But the real secret to success has been in attracting both professionally run teams and amateur sailors.
Wanted to create a boat which, performed well, had the characteristics of a TP52, but on a smaller scale.
Rob Greenhalgh is a multiple champion in a variety of classes. He knows high performance inside out and was the instigator of the new class.
So a fast 40 is essentially up to 12.6 metres, and the boats weigh approximately 4 tonnes. So in general, light displacement, pretty quick. Downwind, they get up on the plane pretty early, around 14, 15 knots. You're planing downwind, and we're seeing boat speeds in excess of 20 knots.
But it's not just about the boat. The team makeup has also provided one of the secrets to success.
The key things of our class was to make it an owner-driver class, so no professional helmsman. We've got a crew of 11, and out of 11 people, we're allowed 5 professional Cat 3 sailors, the rest of which have to be amateur. Next year we're introducing sail restrictions, quite tight sail restrictions as well, so the sailing should be about teamwork and not about big checkbooks.
Among the top players in the class, there are some impressive all-carbon fibre machines, such as Peter Morton's Carkeek 40 Girls on Film and Sir Keith Mills' Kerr 40 Invictus, that are frequently at the front of the fleet. Mills is no stranger to Grand Prix racing.
I used to race a TP52 in the Solent, and I didn't have time to go down to the Med. And they're great boats, but there are only 1 or 2 of us. And although we ended up winning most things, it really wasn't very exciting. And so the prospect of putting together a fleet of existing 40-footers, 40-plus boats with some new builds was the idea of Rob Greenhouse, and it's really taken off.
But not everyone wants to dig deep in their pockets for a brand new boat. Some have reconfigured existing 40-foot racers and sail them with an amateur crew. Tony Dickens' Jubilee is a modified GP42, an earlier generation of 40-footers that now lend themselves well to conversion into the new class.
So we were looking for a new fleet to get into. We've been racing in the J109 fleet for several years, but felt that we wanted a new challenge. It's been a massive change in terms of different things to learn, different systems on the boat, different sails.
Steve Cowie, who normally races in Scotland, also came to the class with an amateur crew and a plan.
It's part of the appeal that you're up against top boats, and as I said, we'd like to do as well as we can with the crew that we've got. So I don't have any problem with professionals there. I'm delighted to be racing against such high quality opposition, but it's not going to change our philosophy of how we want to run the crew.
And then there were those who travelled much further. Steve Travis from Seattle had chartered a Fast 40, Geronimo, to compete at Cows Week. He sees cost control as being another appeal of the class.
As an owner and a check writer, you have to find a way to somehow control the costs of the sport without blowing it all out of proportion. So you have to, this size boat, the sails are not as expensive. You don't need 15 crew. All of my guys are amateurs. We don't have any pros on the boat. It's just a great fleet, and it's going to continue. Hopefully it'll continue to grow, and if it grows, then maybe there'll be more charter opportunities.
And among the professionals that are sailing, there's also little doubt that the class is off on the right foot.
I've been trading and dealing in race boats in this part of the world for nearly 30 years, and I can't remember seeing such growth of one particular class. We've just contracted the 5th of the McConaughey-built Jason Kerr design 40 pluses to a Scandinavian, Swedish owner. We've also got inquiries from in the Mediterranean, Italy, France, Spain, and I know there are discussions going on with various owners and interested parties in the States as well. So yeah, it will grow for sure.
Confidence that runs throughout the fleet. Sometimes making things smaller makes them bigger in the long run. Swimming across to another boat in deep ocean to offer help is impressive. But for one particular sailor, this was just the start of an inspiring act of seamanship. On the leg from Hobart to the Whitsundays in Australia, the crew of Mission Performance, one of 12 identical Clipper race yachts, went to the assistance of M3, a yacht in distress that was not in the race. M3 had a rope wrapped around its propeller, a damaged mainsail, and a sailor who'd been stuck up the mast after he'd become tangled in the rigging for 7 hours.
Towed over, got about 100 metres in the water, which was a bit salty. I'm glad my hearing aid survived.
Once aboard M3, Gavin Reid, who's been deaf since birth, climbed the 75-foot mast and after 2 hours, freed the crewmen.
The halyards are wrapped all around the mast at the top, so I was required to go up and try and help the guy untangled himself and bring himself down. So it was pretty bumpy up there, and I think I was up there for about 2 hours. But the guy was up there for about 9 hours.
On finishing the race in London, Reid and his crewmates were awarded the Henry Lloyd Clipper Race Seamanship Award. Three weeks after Rio had taken its Olympic bow, it was time for the greatest show on earth to deliver its encore. Welcoming a new wave of international teams to the now familiar South American venue, the Paralympics got underway. As the Olympic Games had proved, the racing in Guanabara Bay can be challenging. Taxing, perplexing, and frequently heartbreaking, Rio delivered another mountain of challenges to the sailors. From the nip and tuck of the diminutive 2.4 metre class, to the high-performance two-person Scud 18, and the heavyweight three-person sonar. All felt the pressure. With 3 second places from 11 races counting as their worst results, victory came into view quickly for Australians Daniel Fitzgibbon and Liesl Tesch in the Scud. A runaway performance meant that their gold was in the bag before the event had finished. Further Australian success came as Colin Harrison, Russell Bowden and Jonathan Harris delivered an impressive display in the sonar, taking gold with ease. Victory in the 2.4 metre class was always going to be tough. Here, even the experts struggled to agree on a favourite. The defending gold medalist Helena Lucas was among those in the frame, yet while she traded first places with Australian Matt Bugg, it was the French sailor Damien Seguin who posted the best overall score for the week to take his second gold in the class. After 6 days and 33 races, the 2016 Paralympics was over. Fortunes had been delivered, and medals that had taken years to achieve were returning home. With no Paralympic sailing in 2020, the close of the 2016 Games also spelled the end of a chapter. But surely not the end of the Paralympic sailing story. Next month, alone and non-stop around the world, we preview the Vendée Globe race. Plus, fully crewed and around the cans, high-octane TP52s lock horns at the World Championships.